A German general stares at a map in August 1944, smiling. American forces have pushed 400 miles from the Normandy beaches in just 1 month. He knows what comes next. Every army in history stalls when it outruns its fuel supply. The mathematics are simple. Patton's tanks will stop any minute now. The Germans will regroup. They might hold until winter. But 125 miles away, something is already rolling toward him that will shatter everything he thinks he knows about war. Nearly 6,000 trucks, headlights blazing through the night like they own the sky, carrying supplies at a pace no military force has ever attempted. Within 72 hours, those immobilized American tanks will smash through German lines. Within a week, Paris falls. Within a month, Americans stand at the German border. And that confident general, he's about to learn that wars aren't won by the best soldiers. They're won by the most trucks. August 19th, 1944. German military headquarters in East Prussia. General Alfred Jodl reviews intelligence from the collapsing Western Front. His staff has done the calculations. Allied supply lines stretch over 400 miles from Normandy beaches to Patton's spearhead units. The numbers tell a clear story. Americans have outrun their logistics. Patton must halt within days, maybe hours. No army can maintain such speed without fuel. From Hitler's headquarters, Jodl analyzes what every German officer knows from bitter experience. An armored division burns through 150,000 gallons of fuel each day when advancing. The Americans sit 400 miles from their supply depots. The conclusion seems obvious. Patton's Third Army will grind to a stop, giving German forces time to regroup at the Seine River, possibly holding until winter arrives. What Jodl doesn't know changes everything. Just 125 miles away, 5,958 trucks are already moving east in an endless stream. Headlights blazing in defiance of every military rule, hauling 12,500 tons of supplies every single day. The Red Ball Express. A logistics operation so bold that German military thinking never imagined it possible. This system is about to destroy every assumption about mechanized warfare. Within 3 days, Patton's supposedly stalled tanks will crash through German positions at the Seine. Within 7 days, they'll liberate Paris. Within 30 days, they'll reach the German border. The finest military minds in Germany are about to receive an education in American logistics that will reshape their understanding of modern war. The teachers? 23,000 truck drivers, 3/4 of them African American, who transform a simple highway system into the most efficient military supply line ever created. German confidence in American failure stems from decades of military experience and recent battlefield observations. The Germans pioneered blitzkrieg warfare, revolutionized combined arms tactics, and understand intimately how supply lines can strangle armies. Their own campaigns repeatedly stalled when logistics couldn't keep pace with battlefield success. In Russia, German advances foundered not from Soviet resistance initially, but from the basic inability to supply forces across enormous distances. German trucks broke down on terrible roads. Horse-drawn wagons, still comprising 80% of German military transport, couldn't match the speed of advancing tank units. Railway gauge differences meant supplies stacked up hundreds of miles behind the front lines. General Heinrich von Luttwitz, commanding the 47th Panzer Corps from September 1944, writes in July, "The Americans faced the same logistical impossibility we faced in Russia. Their mechanical advantage becomes a disadvantage. Machines need fuel, ammunition, parts. They've advanced 400 miles in 30 days. History shows us what happens next. Paralysis. German intelligence carefully tracks American consumption rates. A single Sherman tank burns fuel at half a mile per gallon on roads, far worse across country. An infantry division needs 700 tons of supplies daily. An armored division requires 1,000 tons. Patton commands 12 divisions advancing on a 60-mile front. The mathematics appear irrefutable. 12,000 tons daily, transported 400 miles from the beaches over damaged roads. Through a transportation network the Germans systematically destroyed during their retreat. General Siegfried Westphal, who becomes Chief of Staff to Field Marshal von Rundstedt in September, calculates on August 20th. Even if the Americans possessed unlimited trucks, which they don't, and perfect roads, which they don't, and no mechanical failures, which is impossible, they still couldn't sustain Patton's advance more than another 48 hours. Physical laws cannot be violated, not even by American industry. 2 o'clock in the afternoon, August 25th, 1944. A requisitioned French mansion near Laval. Lieutenant Colonel Lauren Ayers of the Motor Transport Service faces a room full of skeptical officers. The math they present looks stark. Patton's Third Army consumes supplies faster than any army in history, advancing at speeds that defy all logistical planning. Traditional supply methods, railway transport, scheduled convoys, depot distribution have collapsed under the strain. Gentlemen, Ayers announces, we're creating a one-way highway from Cherbourg and the beaches straight to the front lines. Every vehicle runs 20 hours out of 24. No stopping except for gas and emergencies. We'll move 12,500 tons daily minimum. The name comes from railway terminology. A Red Ball freight was an express shipment taking priority over everything else. The Red Ball Express will operate on the same principle. Absolute priority. No delays. No exceptions. The technical specifications defy German military thinking. 2 parallel one-way highways, one for loaded trucks moving forward, one for empties returning. 24-hour operations with headlights blazing, abandoning blackout discipline. No stop policy except for fuel and mechanical failure. 5-minute convoy intervals, maintaining 35 miles per hour average speed. Mobile maintenance units every 50 miles. Military police checkpoints removing any vehicle below 25 miles per hour. Colonel Charles Thrasher, commanding the Advanced Communication Zone, reviews the projected numbers. We need 140 truck companies, 5,958 vehicles minimum, operating at 90% availability. That's impossible by any logistics manual ever written. Yet within 36 hours, the impossible becomes operational. August 26, 1944. Drivers from the 3,916th Quartermaster Truck Company climb into their GMCC KW 2.5-ton trucks, nicknamed the Deuce and a Half, loaded with 105mm artillery shells bound for Patton's guns at Melun. 300 miles east, the demographic composition of the Red Ball Express would stun German racial theorists. Of the 23,000 drivers who eventually operate the route, approximately 75% are African-American soldiers serving in a still segregated army. These men, who can eat in white restaurants or use white facilities in much of America, keep the most celebrated white general's army moving. The drivers develop their own culture within hours. They paint slogans on their trucks. Patton's Blood Bank. Hitler, here we come. Detroit to Berlin Express. They create their own traffic rules. Slower vehicles pull off immediately. Mechanical failures get pushed into ditches. Any truck below 20 miles per hour is considered a roadblock. By August 28th, German reconnaissance units start reporting something unprecedented. Units from Reconnaissance Group 116 radio from positions overlooking the main Red Bull route. Continuous vehicle column. Headlights visible for 20 kilometers. No spacing, no blackout discipline. Estimate 1,000 vehicles per hour. Americans have abandoned all military precaution. This violates everything German military thinking teaches. Headlights at night invite air attack. Continuous columns present perfect artillery targets. No spacing between vehicles means a single disabled truck could halt an entire convoy. Yet the Americans seem unconcerned. General Edgar Feuchtinger, commanding the 21st Panzer Division, personally observes the Red Ball Express from concealed positions on August 30th. His report to Army Group B headquarters reflects growing alarm. The enemy operates a supply system beyond our comprehension. Vehicles pass at 30-second intervals, day and night, without pause. They don't hide, don't disperse, don't follow any rules we understand. This isn't military science. It's mass production applied to warfare. What the Germans can't understand is that American logistics operates on completely different principles. Where German doctrine emphasizes concealment, Americans rely on volume. Where Germans conserve vehicles, Americans assume 20% mechanical failure and plan accordingly. Where Germans follow strict military procedure, Americans improvise continuously. The numbers achieved by the Red Ball Express defy German calculations of what's logistically possible. First week, August 25th to 31st, 1944. 89,939 tons of supplies delivered. Daily average, 12,848 tons. Round-trip distance, 686 miles. Vehicle rotations, 5,958 trucks making 1.5 trips daily. Fuel consumed by the operation itself, 300,000 gallons. German logistics specialists capture these numbers from American documents and dismiss them as propaganda. But the numbers are real, and they're accelerating. By September 5th, the Red Ball Express establishes a rhythm that seems impossible to German logistics officers who still rely on horse-drawn wagons for 80% of their transport. Convoys depart every 5 minutes from the western end. Average convoy, 67 vehicles. Load per vehicle, 5 tons standard, 7 tons frequent overload. Time to cover 350 miles one way, 14 hours average. Turnaround time at each end, 2 hours. Vehicles in constant motion, 5,000 at any given moment. The Red Ball Express generates innovations hourly as drivers and mechanics solve problems German military science considers insurmountable. When trucks break down, approximately 1,800 daily mobile maintenance units perform repairs roadside. Mechanics develop a triage system, 15 minutes to fix or push it off the road. Parts get cannibalized from vehicles deemed unrepairable. Engines get swapped in 45 minutes using mobile cranes. When the designated Red Ball route becomes congested, drivers create alternate paths. They commandeer French buses to move personnel and free up trucks for cargo. They borrow German vehicles, painting them olive drab and pressing them into service. They build bypasses around destroyed bridges, using rubble from bombed buildings as roadbed. The Germans, observing this chaos that somehow produces order, can't comprehend it. German logistics doctrine emphasizes careful planning, maintenance schedules, and proper procedures. The Americans violate every principle, yet their system accelerates rather than collapses. The most stunning revelation for German observers is American fuel management. The Red Ball Express consumes 300,000 gallons of gasoline daily just for its own operations, more than many German armies receive for all purposes. Yet fuel never runs short. The Americans created a parallel marvel, Operation Pluto, pipelines under the ocean, laying fuel lines across the English Channel. By September 1944, fuel flows through underwater pipes German intelligence hasn't even detected. Forward fuel dumps sit every 25 miles along the Red Ball route. Tanker trucks run their own parallel convoy system. ensuring no vehicle waits more than 10 minutes for refueling. General Walter Waldman observes from aerial reconnaissance photographs. The Americans have fuel dumps larger than our entire strategic reserves. They burn more moving gasoline than we allocate to entire panzer divisions. This isn't war as we understand it. It's industrial overflow. The Red Ball Express doesn't just supply Patton's advance. It multiplies its speed exponentially. German military doctrine calculates that an armored division can sustain 20 to 30-mile advance daily under optimal conditions. Patton's divisions, supplied by the Red Ball Express, average 40 to 60 miles daily for weeks. September 1st, 1944. The 4th Armored Division advances 35 miles in morning operations, halts for resupply at noon. Red Ball trucks are waiting with fuel and ammunition. The division advances another 32 miles in the afternoon. This 67-mile single-day advance shatters German defensive planning, which assumes maximum 30-mile daily advances. General Heinz Guderian, reviewing the reports in East Prussia, initially refuses to believe them. No armored force can advance 60 miles daily for a week. Mechanical failures alone prevent it. This is propaganda or misidentification. But intercepted American radio traffic confirms it. More disturbing for German commanders, the Americans broadcast their positions openly without code. Supremely confident in their ability to move faster than Germans can react. By September 5, 1944. German intelligence compiles comprehensive reports on the Red Ball Express. The implications are catastrophic for German planning. Every assumption about American military capability requires revision. The report contains observations that defy German military science. Americans waste vehicles prodigiously, abandoning damaged trucks rather than repairing them. Drivers operate on stimulants for days, violating every principle of personnel management. No camouflage discipline, making the entire system vulnerable to air attack that never comes. Mechanical failure rates of 30% daily, simply overwhelmed by redundancy. Fuel consumption that would bankrupt any European military. Field Marshal Walter Model's response reveals growing desperation. If these reports are accurate, we face not a superior army, but a superior civilization. They make no effort to hide because they don't fear us. They waste resources because they have infinite resources. We cannot defeat this with military tactics. The Red Ball Express drivers pay a physical price German observers can't see. Drivers operate for 72 straight hours, hallucinating from exhaustion and amphetamines. Accidents kill 300 drivers during the Red Ball's operational period. Trucks collide in fog, overturn on damaged roads, burn when overheated engines ignite. Yet morale remains extraordinarily high. These men, mostly African Americans denied equal rights at home, understand they're making history. They're proving Hitler's racial theories wrong with every mile driven, every ton delivered. Captured German officers provide eloquent testimony to the Red Ball Express's impact. Major Hans von Luck, taken prisoner in September 1944, tells interrogators, "We knew we'd lost when we understood your supply system. You violate every rule. Waste fuel, abandon vehicles, exhaust drivers, yet succeed through sheer volume. You've industrialized warfare beyond our comprehension." The psychological impact on German forces is devastating. German soldiers can hear American trucks all night, every night. Endless motors, endless supplies. They have 3 rounds per rifle, while Americans bring millions of rounds. The sound itself becomes psychological warfare. The vehicles themselves become demoralizing proof of inevitable defeat. The trucks themselves amaze German engineers. The GMCCC KW 2.5-ton truck, the backbone of the Red Ball Express, represents mass production perfection. General Motors produces over 500,000 of these vehicles by war's end more. trucks than the entire German military possesses. Of all types combined, the trucks feature innovations Germans haven't implemented. All-wheel drive is standard, not exception. Automatic tire inflation systems. Waterproofing that allows 30-inch water fording. Engines that run on low-quality fuel without modification. Heaters that actually work in winter. More stunning is American maintenance philosophy. Where Germans rebuild engines, Americans replace them. Where Germans ration parts, Americans discard entire vehicles for minor problems. Where Germans have master mechanics, Americans have thousands of competent mechanics who can perform 80% of repairs. As the front moves east, the Red Ball Express adapts with speed that stuns German planning officers accustomed to weeks of preparation for major logistics changes. When the original route to Chartres becomes insufficient, Americans create Red Ball Express extensions overnight. White Ball Express, Rouen to Paris, Green Diamond, Cherbourg to railroad transfer points. Red Lion, Bayeux to Brussels, ABC, Antwerp, Brussels, Charleroi. Each new route becomes operational within 48 hours of conception. German staff officers require weeks to plan similar operations. The Americans simply paint new markers, assign trucks, and start rolling. The predominance of African-American drivers in the Red Ball Express creates cognitive dissonance for German racial theorists. Nazi ideology declares blacks inferior, incapable of technical tasks, lacking initiative. Yet these drivers perform logistics miracles that German forces can't match. The African-American soldiers understand the irony. They know what the Nazis think of them, which makes them drive even harder. Every mile they drive proves Hitler wrong. They're fighting racism with truck keys, defeating Nazi ideology through superior performance. Some German prisoners forced to load Red Ball trucks as laborers find their worldview shattered by working alongside African-American sergeants who calculate weight distributions faster than German engineers, who speak better English than German English instructors, who treat prisoners fairly despite everything Nazi propaganda told them about racial behavior. The Red Ball Express requires infrastructure Germans deem impossible to create under combat conditions. Engineers build or reinforce 40 bridges, create 15 major fuel depots, establish 26 maintenance stations, construct 8 temporary cities for drivers, all while the operation runs. The bridge at Mantes had been destroyed by German engineers, specifically to halt American logistics. The Germans calculate replacement would require 6 weeks minimum. American engineers build a temporary bridge in 14 hours, while Red Bull convoys detour only 8 miles on hastily bulldozed bypass roads. German engineers observe American construction methods with amazement. No planning meetings, no detailed blueprints, just immediate action. They build faster than Germans can destroy, create infrastructure that appears overnight in French fields. One Red Ball Express achievement particularly stuns German artillery officers. Ammunition supply rates that exceed their highest theoretical calculations. American artillery units fire without restriction, a luxury no German unit has enjoyed since 1942. During the reduction of Metz fortifications in September 1944, the 19th Corps' artillery fires 100,000 rounds in 24 hours. The Red Ball Express delivers every round plus 20% surplus. German artillery defending Metz is rationed to 50 rounds per gun per day. The disparity is overwhelming. American guns fire continuously for hours, while German artillery officers calculate that such bombardments require 50 truckloads of ammunition per hour. The Red Ball provides it without pause. The Red Ball Express consumes vehicles at rates that would paralyze any other military. By late September, mechanical attrition reaches staggering proportions. Average vehicle life, 10,000 miles instead of the normal 30,000. Daily breakdown rate 30% of all vehicles. Engines replaced 500 weekly. Tires consumed 10,000 weekly. Total vehicles destroyed or abandoned 5,000 plus. Yet the operation never slows. American production anticipated such losses. Ships arrive weekly at French ports carrying hundreds of new trucks. Replacement drivers train in 2 days and get thrown into convoys. German calculations show Americans destroying more trucks weekly than the Germans possess in France. Yet their transport capacity increases rather than decreases. They've achieved something Germans thought impossible: logistics faster than consumption. French civilians along the Red Ball route witness American abundance that contradicts years of German occupation scarcity. The psychological impact on occupied populations is immediate and profound. The Red Ball Express drivers, particularly African Americans, often share their rations with French civilians despite regulations. Every stop, children gather and drivers give them chocolate, cigarettes, soap. The contrast with German occupation is stark. Americans give away casually what Germans ration strictly. German intelligence reports the propaganda impact. French civilians now believe American victory inevitable. They cite the truck convoys as proof. Resistance activity has increased 400% along Red Ball routes. The population that accepted our occupation now actively opposes it. Early September 1944, the Red Ball Express faces its greatest challenge. Patton's Third Army has advanced so far that even the Red Ball struggles to maintain supply rates. The round trip now exceeds 700 miles. Drivers are collapsing. Vehicles are disintegrating. German intelligence detects the strain. General Hasso von Manteuffel reports September 8th. American supply lines show signs of collapse. Convoy intervals have increased from 5 to 15 minutes. Vehicle speed has decreased. This is our opportunity. But American adaptability again surprises the Germans. Within 72 hours, the Red Ball Express reorganizes, creates intermediate transfer points, cutting individual runs to 350 miles, implements driver rotation systems, establishes 4 maintenance bases, doubles the number of assigned vehicles. By September 12th, tonnage delivery has actually increased. The crisis that should have halted Patton only makes the system stronger. Supplementing the Red Ball Express, Americans implement another logistics solution Germans deem impossible: large-scale aerial supply. C-47 transport aircraft begin delivering critical supplies directly to forward units. Each aircraft carries 3 tons. September 16, 1944. German observers count 900 transport flights in a single day, delivering 2,700 tons by air. The Luftwaffe at its peak managed 300 tons daily to Stalingrad and considered that a maximum effort. The Americans used transport aircraft like trucks. No fighter escort concerns, no fuel limitations. They assume losses and overwhelm them with numbers. The Germans can't compete with this industrial arithmetic. The Red Ball Express operates under command principles that violate German military hierarchy. Junior officers make decisions reserved for generals in the German army. Sergeants command operations larger than German colonels manage. This decentralization baffles German observers. American logistics operates without apparent central control. Every lieutenant acts like a general, every sergeant like a colonel. Chaos should result. Instead, they achieve efficiency the Germans can't match with rigid hierarchy. By October 1944, advancing railheads begin to reduce Red Ball Express requirements. The operation that was supposed to last 10 days has continued for 82 days, delivering 412,000 tons of supplies over 122 million ton-miles. German commanders, now fighting on their own borders, reflect on what they've witnessed. Field Marshal Model writes in his final report, "We were not defeated by American tanks or planes primarily. We were defeated by American trucks." The Red Ball Express proved that in modern war, logistics is strategy. The transition to rail transport is itself a marvel. American railroad engineers reconstruct 1,000 miles of destroyed French rail lines while the Red Ball runs. They lay new track faster than Germans destroyed it, often using captured German rail equipment. The final Red Ball Express statistics defy every German calculation of logistical possibility. 82 days of operation. 412,193 tons of supplies delivered. 222 million ton-miles. 5,958 vehicles average. Peak 7,000. 23,000 total drivers employed. 700,000 gallons of fuel consumed daily. 40,000 tons of ammunition delivered to Patton alone. 15 million rations transported. 135,000 medical supply tons. Reviewing these figures in captivity, German officers admit they calculated American logistics based on European precedent. They multiplied their best performance by 3 and assumed that was American maximum. They were wrong by a factor of 10. Beyond tonnage and distance, the Red Ball Express achieves something more profound. It destroys German faith in their own military superiority. German officers who dismissed Americans as soft and mechanically dependent watch those same Americans achieve logistics miracles through determination and industrial abundance. German prisoners of war stand silent at prison camp fences, counting passing Red Ball trucks. Some weep. They understand what it means. Not just that Americans can supply their armies, but that they can waste more than Germans can produce. There, watching their worldview collapse, one truck at a time. The Red Ball Express forces an unexpected racial reckoning within the American military itself. The operation's success depends overwhelmingly on African American soldiers who were still segregated, denied equal treatment, and barred from combat roles. General Eisenhower, visiting Red Ball operations in September 1944, witnesses the contradiction firsthand. His aide, Captain Harry Butcher, records, "The general stood watching colored drivers who'd been at it for 20 hours straight. He said, 'These men are winning the war as surely as any infantry. We need to reconsider many things.' The success creates pressure for integration that contributes to military desegregation 3 years later. African American soldiers prove in France what they always knew. Given the tools and opportunity, they match anyone. The Red Ball is their combat, and they win it decisively." German racial theorists struggle to explain the contradiction. SS racial science publications simply stop mentioning American logistics operations. The evidence is too overwhelming to deny, too damaging to acknowledge. German military engineers study Red Ball Express operations intensively after the war. The lessons revolutionize logistics thinking worldwide. Volume overcomes inefficiency. Mechanical redundancy eliminates vulnerability. Decentralized execution enables speed. Standardization multiplies capability. Human endurance has limits, but they're higher than assumed. General Franz Halder, former chief of the German General Staff, writes in 1950, "The Red Ball Express proved logistics determines strategy, not vice versa. Americans understood this. We learned it too late." Among the 23,000 Red Ball drivers, individual stories of heroism emerge that Germans find incomprehensible within their military framework. These are verified accounts from military records. Corporal John Houston drives continuously for 48 hours, delivering ammunition to the 2nd Armored Division at Cambrai, falling asleep at the wheel 3 times, but continuing after being revived by other drivers. Private Booker, Washington's truck catches fire from overheated brakes while carrying medical supplies. Instead of abandoning it as procedure requires, he drives the burning vehicle 2 miles to a field hospital, jumping out as flames reach the cab. The supplies save wounded soldiers from both armies. These stories, multiplied thousands of times, reveal American military culture to observing Germans. Individual initiative, calculated risk-taking, mission accomplishment over regulatory compliance. Desperately, German forces attempt to create their own version of the Red Ball Express in late 1944. Operation Grief during the Battle of the Bulge includes plans for captured American trucks to create German supply lines. The effort fails immediately. German drivers can't maintain American speeds. German mechanics can't repair American equipment fast enough. German fuel supplies can't sustain the consumption rates. Most fundamentally, Germans can't replicate the American attitude of unlimited resources. The officer commanding the operation reports, "We captured 50 American trucks. Within a week, 30 were broken down. Americans would have replaced them. We tried to repair them. That difference explains our defeat." The winter of 1944 to 1945 provides the Red Bull Express's ultimate test. Freezing rain, snow, and ice should stop wheeled transport. German doctrine states wheeled logistics becomes impossible below -10 degrees Celsius. Yet the Red Bull Express continues. Drivers wrap chains on tires, pour alcohol in radiators, and keep rolling. Speeds drop from 35 to 15 miles per hour, but tonnage delivery continues. German observers report ice-covered convoys moving through blizzards that stopped panzer divisions. The Americans created a logistics system that functions regardless of weather, terrain, or enemy action. It isn't elegant or efficient by German standards, but it's unstoppable. May 1945. Captured German logistics officers are required to study Red Ball Express operations for historical records. Their conclusions are unanimous and devastating too. German military pride. General Friedrich Schultz summarizes, "The Red Ball Express represents warfare we never imagined. Americans created a temporary civilization, thousands of men, thousands of vehicles, millions of tons of supplies that existed only to feed armies, then dissolved when no longer needed. We built permanent infrastructure over years. They created superior temporary systems in days." The most insightful analysis comes from General Heinz Guderian, father of German armored warfare. "We invented Blitzkrieg, but never solved its fundamental limitation, logistics. Americans solved it through industrial excess we deemed impossible." The Red Ball Express was not a supply line, but a flowing river of material that drowned our forces. The Red Ball Express costs the United States approximately $100 million in 1944. Vehicles destroyed, fuel consumed, roads damaged, French claims for compensation. German staff officers accustomed to managing scarcity find the figure incomprehensible, yet Americans consider it cheap. The operation enables the capture of 400,000 German soldiers, the liberation of France, Belgium, and Luxembourg, and shortens the war by an estimated 6 months. Each day of war costs America $250 million. The Red Ball Express pays for itself in a single day of shortened conflict. Lieutenant General John Lee, commanding logistics for the European theater, states, "We wore out 5,000 trucks and 23,000 men to destroy the German army in France. In any previous war, that would be catastrophic losses. In American industrial war, it's acceptable overhead." An unexpected consequence of the Red Ball Express is the revolutionary impact on post-war civilian logistics. Thousands of drivers return to America with experience operating the world's largest transportation network. These veterans found trucking companies, design interstate highways, and create the modern American logistics industry. Companies like Yellow Freight Roadway and Consolidated Freightways are started by Red Ball. Veterans who apply military logistics to civilian commerce. They learned in France that volume beats efficiency. Speed beats perfection. And if you can keep trucks rolling 24 hours, you can move the world. Military historians universally recognize the Red Ball Express as the decisive logistics operation of the European theater. Without it, Patton's advance stops, Paris falls weeks later, and German forces successfully establish winter defensive lines. The operation validates American military doctrine that emphasizes logistics over tactics. While German officers study military theory and battlefield maneuver, Americans study assembly lines and railroad timetables. The Red Ball Express demonstrates that in modern warfare, the ability to supply forces determines victory more than tactical brilliance. September 15, 1944. Field Marshal Gerd von Rundstedt, Supreme German Commander in the West, receives comprehensive intelligence on the Red Ball Express. After studying the reports for hours, he summons his staff. "Gentlemen," he announces, "we face something beyond military solution. The Americans have created a supply system that makes distance irrelevant. Our strategy assumed their culminating point where advancing forces outrun supplies. That point doesn't exist. They have revolutionized warfare, and we are fighting the last war." His operations officer suggests interdicting the Red Ball routes with the remaining Luftwaffe. Von Rundstedt's response reveals complete understanding. "With what shall we interdict? They have 6,000 trucks. If we destroy 1,000, which we cannot, they'll replace them in a week. We'd need to destroy 200 trucks daily just to match their production. We don't have 200 aircraft total." Behind the statistics are human stories that reveal American character to German observers. Drivers who haven't slept for 3 days refuse relief because their trucks might not make it through. Mechanics work in freezing rain to keep convoys rolling. Teenagers lie about their age to drive trucks. Such stories multiplied throughout the operation create a mythology that demoralizes German forces. The Americans are not soft as propaganda claimed. They drive themselves harder than Germans drive horses, but they do it voluntarily, not from fear. This makes them more dangerous than German doctrine understood. The Red Ball Express becomes unintentional propaganda more powerful than any planned operation. German soldiers can hear the convoys at night, endless streams of motors that never stop. The sound itself becomes psychological warfare. German units report hearing ghost convoys that demoralize troops as effectively as actual logistics. The knowledge that Americans have unlimited supplies while Germans ration their last ammunition creates despair that undermines combat effectiveness. American psychological warfare units recognize the impact. They begin broadcasting truck engine sounds toward German lines when actual convoys aren't present. German units report these phantom convoys as real, demonstrating the psychological damage the Red Ball Express has inflicted. November 1944, with rail lines partially restored, the Red Ball Express is officially discontinued. But its methods have revolutionized military logistics permanently. The concept of continuous, high-volume, wasteful but effective supply becomes American military doctrine. The final innovation is the speed of dissolution. The massive operation, 23,000 men, 6,000 vehicles, hundreds of installations, disappears in 72 hours. Troops reassigned, vehicles redistributed, routes returned to civilian use. Germans require months to create smaller operations and years to dissolve them. Americans build what they need, use it, discard it, and build something better. When German generals surrender in May 1945, many cite the Red Ball Express, specifically as demonstrating the hopelessness of continued resistance. General Hasso von Manteuffel states at his interrogation, When we understood your logistics capacity, we knew the war was lost. You could supply armies faster than we could destroy them. The Red Ball Express was a weapon against which we had no defense. Field Marshal Albert Kesselring, among Germany's most competent commanders, is asked what most surprised him about American forces. His answer: not your tanks, not your planes, but your trucks. The Red Ball Express showed us that you had militarized your entire society's production capacity. We were fighting your factories, not just your soldiers. The final statistics of the Red Ball Express stand as testament to American industrial warfare. Total cargo delivered: 412,193 tons. Total distance covered 122 million ton-miles. Trucks employed 5,958 daily average, 7,000 peak. Drivers involved 23,000 total. Operating days 82. Fuel consumed 57 million gallons. Tires worn out 180,000. Vehicles destroyed 5,000 plus. Cost $100 million. German divisions defeated through supply advantage 47. Estimated war days shortened 180. These numbers tell a story that transcends military operations. They represent the moment when warfare changed forever, when industrial capacity became more important than tactical brilliance, when logistics determined strategy rather than serving it. In 1994, on the 50th anniversary of D-Day. On the 50th day, the United States Postal Service issues a commemorative stamp honoring the Red Ball Express at the National Postal Museum in Washington. The ceremony recognizes the operation that had been overshadowed by combat operations, but proved equally decisive in Allied victory. Veterans who attend speak of their pride in an operation that proved American industrial might and individual determination could overcome any obstacle. They drove through exhaustion, through mechanical failure, through weather that stopped armor. They were black soldiers, mostly segregated, discriminated against, denied recognition during the war. But they delivered victory at 35 miles per hour. The Red Ball Express proves that in modern warfare, logistics is not support. It is the main effort. The operation demonstrates that industrial democracy can mobilize resources on a scale that totalitarian efficiency can't match. German generals who laughed at American logistics are silenced by 6,000 trucks delivering 12,500 tons daily across 700 miles of liberated France. They assumed Americans would follow European precedent, conserve resources, advance cautiously. Instead, Americans create a logistics tsunami that drowns German forces in Allied abundance. The operation's success comes not from military genius, but from American characteristics Germans never understand: industrial excess, mechanical aptitude, improvisational skill, and most importantly, the initiative of individual soldiers who make independent decisions that in the German army would require Field Marshal approval. In his memoirs, General George Patton, whose Third Army was the primary beneficiary of the Red Ball Express, writes the ultimate tribute: the truck drivers of the Red Ball Express deserve as much credit for the defeat of Germany as any combat unit. They drove through exhaustion, through mechanical failure, through weather that stopped armor. Without them, the Third Army doesn't move. Without movement, we don't win. They were black soldiers, mostly segregated, discriminated against, denied recognition. But they won the war as surely as any rifleman. History must record this truth. That truth stands as the final testament to the Red Ball Express. 23,000 mostly African-American drivers operating 6,000 trucks on a one-way highway to victory achieve what German military science declared impossible. They supply advancing armies faster than physics should allow. maintain tempo beyond human endurance, and prove that in modern warfare, the side with the most trucks beats the side with the best tactics. The German generals laughed at American logistics, dismissing it as wasteful, undisciplined, impossible to sustain. 82 days later, those same generals surrendered to armies supplied by the Red Ball Express, finally understanding that American trucks defeated German tanks. That industrial abundance overwhelmed military excellence. That logistics have become strategy. The Red Ball Express ends on November 16, 1944. But its impact echoes through military history. It proves that in the industrial age, victory belongs not to the bravest soldiers or brightest generals, but to the nation that can deliver the most supplies the fastest. The farthest dot the German generals who laughed at American logistics in August 1944 signed surrender documents in May 1945, defeated by 23,000 truck drivers who revolutionized warfare at 35 miles per hour. Their story deserves its place among the great military operations of history. Not because it was elegant or efficient, it was neither, but because it worked. The Red Ball Express keeps Patton rolling, keeps the Germans retreating, and proves that in modern war, the convoy of trucks matters more than the column of tanks. The highways of France still bear the scars of the Red Ball Express. Ruts worn by overloaded trucks, bridges hastily repaired, roadsides littered with abandoned vehicles. But the greatest monument to the operation is the speed of Allied victory. Every day the war shortened saved thousands of lives. The Red Ball Express shortened it by months. In the end, the German generals who laughed at American logistics learned the hardest lesson of modern warfare. Amateurs talk tactics, professionals talk logistics, and Americans talk trucks. The Red Ball Express is America talking very loudly indeed in the roar of 6,000 engines that never stop, carrying democracy and destruction at 35 miles per hour down a one-way road to victory. The last word belongs to a German officer whose name is lost to history, quoted by a Red Ball driver at the 1994 commemoration. Standing beside a road in Belgium, watching the endless convoy of American trucks, the officer says in accented English to his captors, "We prepared for everything. Your tanks, your planes, your ships. We never prepared for your trucks." How do you defeat an enemy who has more trucks than you have soldiers? The answer rolls past him at 5-minute intervals, driven by exhausted Americans who are rewriting the rules of warfare, one delivery at a time. The Red Ball Express has made logistics into strategy, supply into victory, and trucks into the most decisive weapon of the European war. The German generals stop laughing when they understand this truth. But by then, Patton is already at their gates, supplied by the greatest logistics operation in military history.